report, Vice President Yemi Oshibajo said that he was ready to waive aside the immunity conferred on his office to clear any allegation of the case of corruption leveled against him. He's also threatening legal action against two men. Please, can you take us to the story, Adenike?
Okay, so the vice president made a remark through his senior special assistant on media and publicity. That's Laudo Akonde, and he stated clearly that he had already been instructed to institute legal actions against two persons, Timmy Frank and another Kachi Ononugu, who have put their names to the audacious falsehoods that have been circulating in the past few days. Now, Timmy Frank is a former APC spokesperson, and he claimed a few days ago that he had reliable information from his sources in the presidency to the effect that Vice President Yemi Oshibajo's office had mismanaged about 90 billion naira released by the FIRS to prosecute the 2019 general elections. Laulu said the vice president had, well, through the tweets, and I'm going to have to put it verbatim. It says, it's to enable the most robust adjudication of several baseless allegations, insinuations, and falsehoods against his person and the office. Oshibajo continues to say, I will waive my constitutional immunity to enable the most robust, and many questions have come to bear.
Yes.
And one of the biggest questions is, does he actually have to waive any form of immunity for an investigation to take place? And the answer is no. However, his office does enjoy certain forms of immunity against criminal and civil proceedings provided for in section 380 subsection P. Notwithstanding, and let me quote, notwithstanding anything contrary, blah, 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 no civil or criminal proceedings shall be instituted and continued against the person to whom this section applies during his period in office. And the person in question is the vice president or the occupant of the office, as the case may be. It raises many questions, and downstairs, me and I were talking about, this is not the first time I'm hearing stories about defamation of character, falsehood, libel, slander, whatever it is. And one question that comes to mind is, I hope that Timmy Frank and this catch guy have substantiated or substantial evidence, seeing that the office has now
threatened legal action
exactly against them for defamation. And what happens is it will be a very, very beautiful case to watch at the very end. We want to see what will happen. We want to see where that will lead. We want to see what will, because once the judgment comes out in favor of the vice president, it means that a lot of people now will be careful how they peddle, falsehoods.
And a number of people have praised this action, that instead of shutting down people, go to the legal route in terms of if people say something about you.
What would we have expected them to have gone to pick both of them up?
It's not,
which is what some other people.
I was going to say it's not new. They wouldn't be. I mean, we've heard of things like that, and so perhaps it's worthy of praise. To see that
I don't like to praise is because we have normalized the anomalies here, such that when we see what should be, we then start to overpraise it. This is what should ordinarily be. And all the other things that we had seen in the past, or whatever it is in this regard, the instance that you gave, are things that shouldn't be. So for that instance, it means that do the right thing, what we feel like is Oshibajo's office are now doing. Fingers crossed, let's see where it leads to and how far that goes.
Thanks, Adenike. We'll definitely keep our eyes on this particular case. We'll give you updates on what happens between the Vice President and Timmy Frank with Kachi Ononuju. Let's move on to our next story. Cheta, let me come to you for this. Hope rises for 2020 budget as Buhari submits the medium-term expenditure framework, MTF, and the fiscal strategy paper, FSP, for consideration of the Senate, dispelling the worry that the 2020 budget may suffer delay. So, I mean, interesting headline from The Guardian, and I think this day newspaper had a similar headline with regards to hope rising. Would you consider this hope rising, and give us the details, please, of the story?
Not at all. I don't like I don't like doing works of fiction. And the MTF once again is a work of the document shows that the government is projecting a revenue of 7.17 trillion naira. Now let's just go to the one that we know about, the most recent budget. The 20 budget had the real revenue, the revenue that accrued to Nigeria in 2018 was 3.886 trillion naira.
Mm.
Expected revenue in 2018 was 6.6 trillion naira. So only 58% of that expected revenue came in, of which 51% of the that's a grand total of 30% of. So I'm trying to disaggregate it in English so that to be simple.
Mhm.
So we expected, according to the MTEF for 2018, our expected revenue was 6.6 trillion naira. What really came was 3.86 trillion. Of the 3.86 trillion, 58%, 51% of that was oil revenue.
Yeah.
The remaining 49% was revenue from other sources, including grants and borrowing. Of which borrowing is becoming an increasingly bigger share of our revenue in quotes. So when you have something like that, this is the most because we're still in the 2019 budget cycle, so we don't yet know what the revenue is. But I can tell you for free that it's already performing way below expectations. So when you have consistent, and since Buhari came into office, and even before Buhari came into office, we've always failed to meet budget revenue targets. So why can we not adjust our revenue expectations to be in line with reality? Why do we keep doing all these fictitious things and then ending up having these ridiculously padded budgets that still have the same items, line items year after year? It's for me. It's not a story of hope. It's a story of a country living on delusion. Let us understand where we are really, so that we can know how to start increasing productivity.
Well, I think the hope you're talking about here as well is the fact that the government, particularly, let's talk about the present government, President Muhammad Buhari, has been criticized in the past for submitting the budget for the year late.
No, compared to Buhari, he has always submitted budgets early. It's wanting to submit budgets on time. It's another thing. So this will be the latest. Typically, it's usually about around October, early November that he presents the budget to a joint sitting of the National Assembly. This is likely to be the latest that he will do it. But then it's one thing to submit the budget proposal to the National Assembly. It's another thing for them to pass it. So it's in the passage that there's usually the delay, because everybody will start quarreling over what. And here's what part of the problem. Our people see so one of the things that they're going to quarrel over is benchmark. What will be the benchmark? So the Minister of Finance has suggested a sub $60 benchmark. Somebody somewhere is going to raise it, and then we're going to have that quarrel. As in all of it, it's a mess.
All right, thank you very much. Let's take some comments, please.
This one here from C from Lekki says, I'm not sure the VP can waive his immunity. Case in point, Tinubu versus Fawemi, 2001 Court of Appeal. And Dami also has this message here.
Says nobody seems to be denying the release of 90 billion naira by FIRS to APC for election. Was the money appropriated? Is that not fraudulent? And then Ayodeji says regarding the 90 billion naira story, he mentioned that the Vanguard had published an apology in their online edition. Thank you very much, Ayodeji. Would have a look at that. And Prince also corroborates that story as well. Thank you very much indeed.
What are they apologizing for?
Would give the updates on the apology. Emeka from Amuo says, it surprised me the VP said what he said. I thought he was a professor of law. I think the vice president said all he said out of emotion. I think what he can do is to step aside while the investigation is commencing. All right, thank you very much for your comments, Emeka.
This one next story comes to you for me. It's from the Daily Times. It says Senate rolls out legislative agenda, and basically on Wednesday at the plenary, they received the report of its ad hoc committee on the ninth Senate legislative agenda. Can you walk us through the story?
Okay, yes. So the story says that there was an ad hoc committee set up to create the legislative agenda for the 9th National Assembly. And while that sounds good, like we want to create a framework for what we'll do for the next 4 years, the story is actually a bit sketchy on what that agenda is. What they listed sounds a bit too vague to me. So according to the story, they listed youth empowerment to curb unemployment, poverty alleviation to lift 100 million Nigerians out of poverty, tackling the phenomenon of out-of-school children in the country, creation of special health centers in the 6 youth elite school zones, reduction of acute housing deficit in the country. So when I look at all the things that were listed, it looks more like action points for the executive arm of government
Okay.
to me, rather than what should form
So what we're
the
expecting to look for is the details.
legislative framework. Because the truth is, most of these things, let me take the out of school children, for example. So it's in our constitution. The challenge we have is that it's not being enforced.
Okay.
So those things look like, well, beyond looking at how much is appropriated to it in the budget, I feel like there's very little that the National Assembly can do right
So
now.
if you were to
More
recommend,
for no, but they did mention some that I do think should form part of their legislative agenda if they would do it. Measures to further enhance gender equality, fast track passage of the petroleum industry bill, and holistic reform of the oil and gas sector. So this is something that the 8th National Assembly did quite a bit of work on. And we almost had, in fact, they passed the
Okay.
PIGP, wasn't just assented to. So yes, it's something that Nigerians have been waiting for since like forever. So whatever National Assembly will get it into law, it will be a huge deal. But beyond this, so there's something, and I think it's Cheta that has actually pressed on it for years, how we
Okay.
as citizens concentrate a lot on executives, on what the president is doing and what the governors are doing. And while we shouldn't reduce the pressure of that, we seem to give our legislators a pass mark. So beyond the excessive funds that they use to run their affairs, we don't tackle them on what it is that they should be doing. And long-lasting progress and development will come about by a reform of some of our existing laws, and not just what the executive arm of government is doing. Personally, I think that it's going to take a miracle to completely overturn our constitution. So I think that, for instance, every National Assembly should have a constitutional reform committee,
Okay.
where we constantly, continually look at our constitution to reform whatever parts of it. And I'll give a very simple example. Most Nigerians were disappointed with the Election Petition Tribunal judgment over qualification, over what is required, what you're supposed to add. But I mean,
you
it's
sure
your
it's most?
constitution. Well, some.
It was.
Is
it
your
was half-
constitution is your constitution that does provide that school cert certificate and define school certificate. There's been an argument regarding this economic advisory committee / the constitutional national economic team. And while Nigerians are sort of have let that pass because we do like the composition of the newly constituted Economic Advisory Council. Why can't we push our legislators to make sure that the members, the people that should form the Constitutional National Economic Council, are people that are reputable economists? Right now, Trump provides is that the vice president should chair it. It should be constituted by 36 governors and the governor of the central bank. And when you look at the qualifications of the people that are supposed to hold that office, those are the people that are supposed to create the economic policies.
Okay.
So those are reforms that we should push for.
So a committee that just checks things that's
The existing laws, yes. So when you come and give me all this nice sounding words, yes, nice sounding sound bites. True legislative reform is how we're going to get proper development, and we seem not to pressure our legislators enough in respect of that.
All right, thank you
All
very
right,
much.
thank you very much. With regards to the first headline, 90 billion naira FIRS corruption allegation, I'm ready to waive immunity to defend myself, Oshibajo, and comments about Vanguard apologizing. It's worthy of note that the headline talks about the Vice President Oshibajo's reaction to the two men in question and not the. So Vanguard apologized for running the story, the interview with Timmy Frank, and Vice President Oshibajo has said that he threatened to sue Google and Vanguard for running with that story. However, the story we took was on his response to waiving immunity to defend himself and suing the two men in question. So hope that's clear. All right, let's move on to our next headline. FEC approves 309.4 billion naira for Ibadan Ife. Kano Katsina dual carriageway, second Niger Bridge link roads. So the Federal Executive Council, presided over by Vice President Emi Shibajo yesterday, has approved 109.4 billion, as we mentioned, approved these sums for the roads and the works being done on these roads. But please can you take us through the story?
Once again, it's the revenue thing. So it's one thing to have all these stories of approvals and approvals. It's another thing to have the money to pursue this thing. Let's be honest and realistic about the situation that we are in. 2018 federal budget performance. Capital projects performance very poor, very poor. No matter how you cut it, no matter how you dice it, and that's because again that the 58%, 54% revenue target met, which translated most of our expenditure is recurrent expenditure. So it's translated to 22% capital expenditure.
Okay.
Now, when you say capital, 22% is F9 by any standard. That once you have 22%, that's F9. Saying, so in short, that's kind of thing that you beat your picking and collect your school fees back from him. Now, when you have something like that of that nature, it doesn't. It will be no surprise that, as an example, the Lagos-Ibadan road, the Lagos-Ibadan railway, all of these, and the one that is really dear to me, the second Niger Bridge, you start seeing excuses such as like this recent one that Fashola made, that we are looking for money to compensate communities along the second Niger Bridge path that you've started work since. I can tell you for a fact that work has slowed down. Why? I go to that area once every 6 weeks or thereabouts. So I make it a point of duty to always visit. And I will confirm that around September last year, work resumed and accelerated. And I was cynical about it. I said, I'm anime fan. And
Thank you.
Self-explanatory.
This is an English program.
Okay, it's because of election that they are doing all of this. And I'm not happy because, see, I don't care who corporate. Whether it is Buhari or whether it is Joseph Stalin or whether it is my people will benefit from having that. But this, you know that something untoward is happening, and it all boils down to the fact that Nigeria is not broke. Nigeria is bankrupt, and until we admit the fact that our financial situation is precarious, and then stop, we will keep going around and around in circles.
Thank you very much. I speak English, but thank you very much indeed.
Economy, which you already agree is imploding, doesn't implode any further, and seeing that this is one thing we can do. But what a few others who stood up to counter this had mentioned that yes, we are agreeing that the effect of the closure from the time that it was closed up until now, that is not having an adverse effect on as we like to understand, that Nigeria has 87 legitimate borders. Unfortunately, when we close these legitimate borders, over 1,000 other illegitimate borders have been left open, and this smuggling that we claim that we're curbing has continued. So it's a very divided conversation. But the question is, Cheta is trying to talk, but the question is, honestly speaking, how effective is the closure of these borders when it has to do with the economy of Nigeria as it reflects on the day-to-day lives? Because we know that goods and services and the cost of food has increased.
Thank you very much,
Adenike. Okay, so that's you for me. It talks about which has emerged from how Gracious David West, the Port Harcourt serial killer, arrested by the police last week, allegedly murdered 15 women across 10 states. He had earlier claims that he killed 7 women in Lagos, Rivers, and Imo states. Please walk us through this for me.
Okay, so we're back to our police doing trial by media, and
isn't it?
It's now not just parade. Okay, so we've had a culture of our security agencies in Nigeria doing parade of suspects. An act that the courts in Nigeria have found to be unconstitutional, but hasn't stopped them anyway. We have now moved from parade to conducting the trial itself
On the pages of the newspaper.
and allowing journalists to question, like the prosecutors and what have you. But really, it might be an unpopular view, but the truth of the matter is that when you're accused of a crime in Nigeria, some fundamental rights are accrued to you. One of which is a presumption of innocence. One of which is to the right to remain silent until your legal practitioner gets there. And yes, these are heinous crimes.
What are you talking about?
These are heinous crimes, and there's the tendency to want to immediately burn the guy at the stake.
Okay.
But
Yes!
but the truth is, irrespective of what crime it is, there is a legal process, and the legal process was created for in order to create a sane society. The same way that we need to stop, and we are glad that it has reduced. We needed to stop the burning of thieves on the road. Jungle justice. It's why the legal process was created. Sometime in 2011, a man named, I think, Obono or something, actually got damages in court for an illegal parade. So he had been paraded by the DSS in whichever way for this kind of things. And then his file was sent to the Ministry of Justice for prosecution. And the Ministry of Justice found that they can't take him to court. They can't substantiate any case against him. But of course, the damage to his reputation had been done. And so he filed a fundamental rights suit, and he actually won.
What in the case where, in this case, we saw where this person, this
He's
suspect,
confessing.
confessed
Why,
lying.
you know what the truth, his confession is supposed to be in, they can get a confessional statement in their police station, which they will tender in court. Well, I'm not saying that don't get a confession. What I'm saying is it should be done properly. You don't begin to go on social media and air an accused person's confession.
If you've ever witnessed some of the processes by which these confessions are,
because you question it.
I think extracted is the word that you would. Some of these confessions are not worth the piece of paper they are written on.
All right, thank you very much. We have Tunde on WhatsApp who says, I think it's worth praising when someone acts normal in this country because it shows we still have right thinking and rational Nigerians. Imagine a country where projected revenue has always fallen below expectation, and yet the government refuses to cut down expenditure or incur expenditure that will boost revenue. Is that not abnormal?
We need those 5.5 billion naira cheap. So don't put Sansa in our garage.
Our final story comes to you, Cheta. Says federal government shipping firms targets 258.38 billion reduction in port charges yearly. What are your thoughts about this?
Okay. Extreme port charges, extreme import duties are some of the things that's kill businesses in this country, raise the cost of prices for Nigerians. So I'll give an example. We have, in terms of import duties for vehicles, we have some of the most ridiculously high. I think it's the highest in the world, but I have to cross-check that. Brand new vehicles, import duties are 70%. You didn't know?
70%.
Yeah, 70. Then for used vehicles, it's 35%. Now, what that means is if you are buying a car for $20,000 in the US, by the time it hits the Nigerian road, that car is going for $34,000. It's ridiculous. Again, these things are anti-business. In most other countries, we are looking for ways to reduce costs so that people can spend more. It's basic Keynesian theory. You want to stimulate spending by making it easier for people to spend. However, so on the surface, this is good news, the reduction of 35%. However, my worry is this. This is the Nigerian Shippers Council that is talking about this on behalf of the federal government. Is the Nigerian Shippers Council a statutory body? When you have in reality the Nigerian Ports Authority and more importantly customs who constitute themselves, especially customs, as a roadblock to all of these things. So when you have our customs who will, so you sign this thing, but customs will still hold them
Would
for
impede
gates.
it.
It's so cross purposes is one of our issues.
Mm.
All right. Thank you very much, Cheta. Final comment here from Imoso Koje on YouTube. He says, Vice President, if Vice President, if tried today, will be found guilty, not because he actually embezzled the money, but those vicious politicians around him who actually stole the money will tie everything on his neck. Think twice on that. All right. So apparently he's denying it, and he's saying that he's actually suing the two men for libel, not even contesting the story, because he's saying it's outrightly false. But thank you so much to all our analysts in the studio today, and to all our analysts listening to us and who sent in comments as well. Thanks to Adeniko Yetunde on Twitter. Thanks to Fumi Odude at Fumi Odude, and of course Cheta at Chexter on Twitter. We've gone a quick break. When we come back at 8:15, it'll be time for us to go into the Grapevine 981, where we bring in entertainment stories. We're going to be talking about Nollywood today, talking about some other stories as well. Stay tuned.
Well, actually, it's okay.